So I was talking to a friend actually this week who owns a multifamily property, and she said, I'm thinking about selling this, and she was telling me her future plans, and I was like, okay, cool. Because this is an investment property, you're going to be doing a 1031 exchange, right? And she was like, I have no idea what that is. And so I sometimes fail to realize that people don't know a lot of these more technical things about real estate. So first of all, I keep telling my friends, they're probably so sick of hearing it, but as far as I'm concerned, one of the few ways and one of the easiest ways for the average human being nowadays to really build some wealth and build a legacy of wealth is through real estate and investing. So this particular friend has a multifamily, and so when you own a rental property or an income producing property, you get to claim depreciation on that property. And depreciation basically reduces your taxable income, but does not reduce your cash flow. So it's a real benefit to investors. Now, it's complicated. I'm going to look at, I have a little example that I made up that I have on my computer right here, and I don't want to confuse anybody out there because it's a little bit complicated until you really get it. So let's say you buy a rental property for $375,000, and the IRS wants the value of the actual property and improvements, and then the value of the land is actually separate. So let's say that the value of the actual building and improvements is $275,000. So you are able to depreciate that over 27 and a half years. After that, you're finished depreciating. So over 27 and a half years, if you divide that by the 270,000, that's $10,000 a year. So you get to depreciate that. Every year you get $10,000 knocked off. So let's say after 11 years, you decide to sell that property. This is how they're going to calculate basically your capital gains on that property. If you sold that property for $430,000, these are just numbers I'm using that are on here. You basically, they take that $275,000 that you originally bought it for. They take that $10,000 a year that you've been depreciating it over the 11 years, which is $110,000, and you subtract that. So that gets you to $165,000. The difference between your sales price and the $165,000 is what you're going to be taxed on. And that's called the depreciation recapture. And with depreciation recapture, it's one of the highest taxes that we have, and it's taxed at 25% across the board. So that's a lot of money. How do you avoid paying this tax, or how can you put off paying this tax? One is to die. That sounds really funny, but if you die while owning investment properties, that basis, that $275,000 minus all the depreciation that you originally paid basically goes away, and your adjusted basis is for whatever the market value is when you die. So if you die and leave it to your heirs are not going to pay all those capital gains. So that is one of the best ways to build some wealth for future generations. And of course, you have the cash flow while you're alive. The other way is through a 1031 exchange. A 1031 exchange is a way for you to sell one investment property that maybe you've depreciated a lot, and buy a different investment property with the profit from that. And there's a big long process for it, but basically you hire somebody called a qualified intermediary, whereas you sell your original property. That qualified intermediary holds that money, and then you identify a new investment property. It can't be your single family home that you're going to live in, and then you are able to purchase that, and that basically shelters you from paying that capital gains. So that's something that if you own investment property and you were unaware of this, like my friend was, it's something that you should read up on and do some tax planning ahead of time and strategizing if you are planning on ever selling that property, because that is it's a big tax to swallow if you don't know it's coming, and there are ways to plan and deal with it ahead of time. Have a great day, guys.